Everything as we know it about making cars is changing all at once. The industry is reinventing itself with the obvious shift going towards electric. In 2022, around 1 new car in 10 sold worldwide was a battery-powered vehicle. China overtook America as the world's biggest market back in 2009, while last year it passed Germany as the world's second largest exporter. Turkiye's first domestically produced electric car, TOGG, has hit the roads last year, while Turkish commercial vehicle manufacturer Karsan is spearheading the transition to EV electric vehicles, establishing a significant presence in Europe and North America. Patrick Anderson is here in the studio with us. He's the CEO of Anderson Economic Group, who do consulting for some of the biggest car manufacturers in the industry, from General Motors, Ford, through Daimler, Chrysler, but also Honda. Thank you very much for being with us in the studio today.
Nice to join you.
So I'd first like to start by asking you, how do you think the auto sector is doing right now around the world? And I'm referring particularly to the more traditional car makers, and a lot of analysts are predicting that they may go bust at some time in the future. What can traditional car makers do to stay relevant?
Traditional car makers are as relevant today as they have been for the last 50 years. And I think anyone that's ready to write off Toyota, General Motors, Ford, Daimler, Hyundai, not to mention the many automakers here in Turkey, Ford Otosan, others that are manufacturing here, would be really making a silly mistake. The automobile's been around for 120 years. It's worth noting that electric cars were around 120 years ago. Henry Ford had an electric car. And I have every confidence that we're going to continue to build cars, in many in the same ways that we do now, for the next generation.
Are electric vehicles, though, presenting some sort of competition there, though? What sort of obstacles do you think?
There's no question that the electric portion of the market is growing. In the United States now, it's 7, almost 8%, in one of the world's richest car markets. But remember, 7 or 8% is still less than 1 in 10. And even the statistic we have here is 1 in 10. That means 90% of the vehicles are internal combustion engine. And the Anderson Economic Group estimates have been that's going to grow. But it's going to grow slowly because they use these cars for utilitarian purposes, and they don't want to make a giant technology transition just to make other people happy. They want to buy a car that makes them happy, and that means they care about the infrastructure, where to charge it, how much it costs, how reliable it is. And right now, electric vehicles are behind on those.
Are they? Right, so that leads to my next question, a question on electric vehicles themselves, right? Do you predict that there will really be some sort of boom in the EV industry around the world? And what about the infrastructure? Is it ready? Is it more ready in certain regions or not?
It's definitely more ready in certain regions, but I'd have to tell you that I haven't been in a country that it's been ready for yet. Now, maybe if I went to Norway and lived in Oslo, that'd be about the only place in the world where I could say it's ready. In the Detroit area, Michigan, the home of the North American auto industry where I have an electric vehicle.
Right.
It's difficult to drive it from one city to another. Same thing here. If you're driving from, say, Istanbul to Ankara and back, that's difficult. And that means for a lot of buyers, not all buyers, but for a lot of buyers, it's still not practical. You are seeing the early adopters. You will see commercial vehicles, and that's going to grow, but it's going to grow steadily, not immediately.
Interesting. What about Türkiye? Because you have done quite a lot of work on Türkiye itself. It's gaining momentum when it comes to electric vehicles, not only. How is the sector in this country, and how is the infrastructure as well?
I can say that we're bullish on Turkish automakers, and we think that Turkish automakers, including those that have the ability to produce electric vehicles, have an opportunity to sell not only here, but in Europe and in the United States. But it's a tough competition. You need to be prepared for it, and you need to be prepared to tell customers that you're going to get your product charged and serviced. And that's been really the sticking point with EV adoption, is the cost and the ability to get them charged. Until those are solved, you're not going to see 50% of the market go to that. You're going to be struggling to get to a quarter.
A question on valuations, PE, price-earning ratios. How are the valuations on the stock exchanges? Do you think it's too stretched for now, for the EVs, but also for the traditional car makers?
I think you've seen a real review of that here. I mean, for 2 straight years, Toyota was beat up by some of the technologists for being behind the scenes. Now they seem like they were the smartest people in the room. Tesla's still valued hugely, and there's a reason for it to be valued hugely, but remember, you got to produce the vehicles, you got to service them, you got to buy them again and fix them, and right now the traditional manufacturers that are doing well, including Toyota, including Ford, including the manufacturers here, and I think some of the manufacturers like Karsan you mentioned earlier, they have a good chance to continue to grow, but they're not going to be tech companies. And I think the experience where Apple just said, okay, we're done making an electric car, that should be very instructive to people. If Apple can't do it with a $1 trillion valuation, perhaps you shouldn't be trying it if you're not ready to be a car company.
Right. How long do you think it will take then for the EV industry to really gain momentum, also here in Türkiye, and with the country potentially starting to export some of its vehicles and electric vehicles as well?
Oh, it has momentum now. It's growing. But the folks that thought that people were going to all throw away their internal combustion engine cars, that was silly. That never made any sense. And you're seeing market reality set in, for example, in the United States, where automakers everywhere from Ford, GM, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota saying, guess what, I think we're going to be making internal combustion engines for a while. We're going to grow our electric vehicle portfolio, but we're going to grow it more steadily. And successful companies and people that want to buy cars that work are thinking that way.